How's it going, everybody? My name is Noah Holly, and welcome back to another episode of the Pride Report. It is episode 22, and today I have a bit of an announcement to make. From here on out, I'm going to be changing up the show a little bit. A daily breakdown of my bracketology will now become a recurring segment on the show, similar to the previews and the recaps. And as we get closer to March, I'm going to be spending more and more time on my projections. So therefore, it will become a bigger and bigger part of the show. I love discussing my bracketology, so I'm really excited for the opportunity to do it live on the Pride Report over the next month or so. Well, that being said, let's hop right into today's show. Let's talk about last night's Big Monday doubleheader, starting with Louisville hosting Syracuse, knowing full well coming into the game that it was a must-win. The Orange delivered behind 47 combined points from their backcourt duo of Frank Howard and Tyus Battle to knock off Louisville 78-73. Now, this is a great win for Syracuse. Considering how they had played over their past three games, we had every reason to think that the Orange would just continue to slip out of tournament contention, but instead they put together one of their best offensive performances all year long and earned a road win over a good Louisville team. However, what we saw last night is the ceiling offensively for Syracuse. Unless Howard, Battle, and O'Shea Brissett all have a great game simultaneously, Syracuse just isn't capable of producing at this level. This is why I remain highly skeptical that this performance was more than just a fluke. Another thing to point out is Louisville's defensive struggles. This is not nearly as good of a defense as it was in years past. It's not particularly difficult to hit a high percentage of your shots against this Cardinals team, which has been increasingly evident over Louisville's three-game losing streak. I'll talk about the bracketology implications of this contest a little bit later in the show. For now, I'm going to focus on Oklahoma versus West Virginia, which is the nightcap of this doubleheader. The highly anticipated rematch between the two Big 12 powerhouses arguably had higher stakes this time around. Both teams were looking to take a big step towards snapping out of recent skids, but only West Virginia was able to do so. The Mountaineers knocked off the Sooners 75-73 to complete a regular season sweep thanks to a big night from Lamont West and a much improved defensive effort. Oklahoma got 32 from a more disciplined Trae Young, who had good shot selection but appeared frustrated and uncomfortable throughout. The Mountaineers did a great job closing off passing lanes, holding Young to just one assist. The lack of fines for the freshman disrupted Oklahoma's offensive flow, which prevented the Sooners from pulling off the comeback. Now, this win is huge for West Virginia. The Mountaineers needed to prove to themselves that they could stand their ground and hold on to a lead. Late in games, they have shown a tendency to lose their composure, but that was far from the case last night. I think now that West Virginia is over the hump, we will see them return to their winning ways. Today's conversation topic is ESPN's obnoxious obsession with Trae Young. Now, you may think that this is a stretch for content, and you're probably right, but this is something that has irked me for a while, and I've really wanted to talk about it, so here we go. Jerry Palm writes, do we really need Trae Young's stats on screen at all times? Are there any other players on the floor? Even a question about whether West Virginia should have called a timeout was twisted into a comment on Young. Now, if you haven't seen during Oklahoma games broadcasted by ESPN, Trae Young's stat line is a permanent fixture on the scorebook. Now, what I mean by that is that on a little black bar above the score graphic, like you all know what I'm talking about there, Young's in-game stats and random factoids about him are featured throughout the broadcast. And not only does he have his own personal news ticker, he's also apparently the only player on the court because no matter what happens in the game, ESPN will consistently find a reason to talk about Young. Now, I understand the appeal of this marketing tactic, but that doesn't mean that I have to agree with it. Young is a big story, but he's not the only relevant aspect of college basketball. In fact, he's far from it. I'm just fed up with ESPN shamelessly ignoring traditional sports coverage in favor of whatever's going to get them money or views or clicks. Well, that being said, I'm going to pass the question off to you. Do you think ESPN's promotion of Young has gone too far? Be sure to let me know. Now it's time for my bracketology update. Every day I tweak my bracketology according to what went down the night before, and every day on this show I will be breaking down exactly what I changed. Let's take a look. Now, since there were many games last night, my projections didn't change that much from Monday, so this is going to be just as much about Monday's bracketology as it is about today's. So anyway, let's take a look at my one seeds. Villanova, Virginia, and Purdue are obvious choices for the top line. It's quite clear that these three teams are on another level right now. As you can see, they are 1, 2, and 3 in some order, and each of the rating sites I have included in this graphic. But what I want to focus on here is the debate for the final spot on the one line, which I gave to Xavier. Now, yesterday I had Auburn in this spot, but I bumped them down in my latest update in favor of the Musketeers. While Xavier hasn't been as consistently dominant as the Tigers, they have played a tougher schedule. The deciding factor, however, was Xavier's win over Cincinnati back in December. Initially, I saw Auburn's road win over Tennessee as proof that they deserve the 1 seed more, but after closer examination, I realized that I'm much more impressed by Xavier's win over Cincinnati. Other than that, both resumes are extremely similar. You really can't go wrong. But after a closer look, I just determined that it made more sense at this point in time to put Xavier on the top line, but it is still very, very close. So we talked about college basketball's elite. Now let's focus more on the bubble. The biggest change in today's projections was Louisville, who I dropped from a 9 to an 11 seed. Louisville is one of the more difficult teams to seed because this is a team with 5 seed or 6 seed talent. They just can't capitalize versus the best teams in college basketball. All their losses have come in close games against top 45 RPI opponents. That's not a good thing. Like, going 1-8 versus top 50 opponents is terrible. You have to do better than that. Until they start capitalizing against the best of the best, this is going to be a bubble team. They're going to remain one unless they can win probably 2 of 3 against UNC, Duke, and UVA, who are the only remaining top 25 opponents on their regular season schedule. If you want to check out the rest of my projections, be sure to head over to collegepridepress.com for the full seeding list. I'll be sure to put a link in the description below. Tonight's slate features plenty of great basketball. Let's run through all the notable action right now. At 6:30 p.m. on Fox Sports 1, Xavier travels to face Butler. Now, this is a Butler team quietly playing its best basketball of the year. Over their past 3 games, Butler has won by 25, 20, and 23 points. Now, granted, it was against weaker competition, but nevertheless, it appears the Bulldogs are hitting their stride heading into the home stretch of the conference schedule. Kentucky will host Tennessee at 7 on ESPN in a matchup of 2 teams heading in opposite directions. Rick Barnes has Tennessee playing their best basketball in a long, long time, while Kentucky continues to struggle to put all of the pieces of the puzzle together. The Wildcats could be in major trouble on their home floor against a Vols defense that has not allowed an opponent to score above 63 points in 7 games now. At 9 p.m. on ESPN2, Kansas takes on TCU at the Phog. The Jayhawks are coming off of a stunning loss to Oklahoma State that has resurfaced doubts about their chances at a deep March Madness run. Following the loss, Bill Self talked about the Jayhawks' small margin for error. Now, he's absolutely right. Kansas doesn't have the depth to overcome bad nights from their stars. For example, if Udoka Azubuike isn't putting up points, then nobody is going to be scoring in the interior because the Jayhawks don't have any other options at the position. In regards to Kansas' struggles at home, it's really hard to fathom. For whatever reason, the Jayhawks are invincible on the road and surprisingly vulnerable on their home floor this season. It leaves the door very much open for teams like TCU to get a shot to win at Phog Allen, which in years past, if these teams had the same talent level, would have been unthinkable. Michigan State travels to face Iowa, one of the worst defensive teams in all of college basketball. Michigan State is winning games, but they haven't been dominating like you would expect. They look to change that at 9 p.m. on ESPN. If you're curious who the CPP staff has winning each of these games and more, be sure to head down to the description below for tonight's pick'em. Unfortunately, that is about all the time I've got for today's episode. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to subscribe and to turn post notifications on. If you like the show, there's no reason not to. By pushing 2 buttons, you could receive instant alerts whenever new episodes of the Pride Report are released. So I definitely recommend that you do that. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you join me tomorrow for episode 23. With that being said, I'm going to wrap this thing up. I will see you guys tomorrow.